Mộc Văn xin kính chào quý vị khán giả. Chào mừng quý vị đến với chương trình In-Depth của đài truyền hình SBTN Úc Châu. Đây là chương trình chúng tôi bàn luận về chính trị chuyên sâu, ảnh hưởng của chính trị đối với đời sống người dân, cũng như là trong chương trình này thì chúng ta sẽ có dịp, có cơ hội gặp gỡ các vị dân biểu, những nhà hoạt động cộng đồng từ các đảng phái, các tổ chức khác nhau để nghe họ nói chuyện về đời sống Úc Châu. Thưa quý vị, rất là vui trong chương trình hôm nay chúng tôi có dịp đón tiếp dân biểu Chris HAYES, dân biểu lao động liên bang khu vực Fowler. Good afternoon, Chris HAYES.
And how are you?
Thank you very much and welcome to the program. Nice to see you back here. And I think the first question we would like to ask you about the World to World Right Remembrance Day for the police. Yeah, how many people took part in that? Is that right?
Well, last Saturday I linked up with about, I suppose 2,500 other motorcyclists.
Yes.
We rode from Sydney through the Domain, and we rode to Goulburn, where we linked up with more motorcycles there. Yes. And eventually linked up with a group from West Australia and Victoria. So we had a group which was getting close to 2,500, maybe almost close to 3,000 motorbikes by the time we reached Canberra. This is a charity ride. Okay. It's a ride that raises money for Police Legacy, and Legacy looks after the families and children of police officers that have been killed. So it was a very, very good ride. The Police Commissioner, Andrew Scipione in New South Wales, Queensland Police Commissioner rode as well, and every other commissioner actually joined at the Police Memorial when we arrived in Canberra. So very, very big event.
Yes.
It was nice to be part of all those very keen motorcyclists. I enjoyed it.
Would I see balloons and banners and a bit of horns during the ride, or how would we know that it's a police remembrance day and then things like that?
Well, at the start of the ride, there's police vehicles and police motorcycles and with flashing lights.
Oh,
but
that's privilege.
With having all those riders there, you could not
miss the event.
They closed the roads. They stopped a set of lights, so we just kept going. It's
amazing.
It was the biggest bikie gang I've ever been part of.
Okay, I wouldn't say that.
Not that I've been part of bikie gangs.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. You are probably a politician riding a bikie. Yes, and then how do you feel? How did you feel? Like a bit of energetic, a bit of kind of free, breezy and...
Well, as an event, I've always enjoyed riding motorcycles, so it's good to be with others that have a similar passion for motorbikes. And motorbikes has a very traditional role in policing, so that's probably how it all came together. But very good. It was an opportunity to get out and ride on a very nice day in the sun, and raise good money. Raise money for a very, very good cause. So before I went into politics, spent many years representing police in various courts and tribunals, and this is a way that I can continue to show my support, because my father, before he is now passed away, but my father was a senior police officer in New South Wales.
Yes. You work with them, and then this is the way that you contribute.
Yes.
Continue to help them in more ways than many ways.
Yes.
Yes, and right, very good about that. I guess that is one of your activities during the week, and then you went to Parliament, and then you took part in the debate as usual. Now on Monday night, would you expect the unexpected, or wouldn't you be?
Well, I think there's been smoke in the air about a leadership change for some time, but come Monday, as two journalists told me, it's no longer smoke.
It's a blazing guns.
Yeah, and we smell it.
You smell it, yeah.
They told me that they thought the challenge was imminent, and it was brought on that evening. So that was certainly a big change. And one of the things I've said, I congratulate Mr. Turnbull, but he's now got a job to show how he is different from Mr. Abbott. Mr. Turnbull was part of Mr. Abbott's cabinet. He was part of the decisions that cut money to families, cut monies to health and education. And what we're saying, if you are different, show us you're different, change those policies that hurt the people that I represent in my community.
Yes. Thưa quý vị, hiện nay chúng tôi đang phỏng vấn dân biểu Chris Hayes và chúng tôi nói chuyện về buổi tối thứ hai ngày 14 tháng 9 vừa qua tại Canberra, và Tony Abbott bị đảo chính và Malcolm Turnbull trở thành thủ tướng của Úc Châu. Và chúng tôi nói chuyện về cái ảnh hưởng của cái diễn tiến đó đối với ông dân biểu Chris Hayes và đối với chúng ta, đối với người dân Úc Châu. Yes, so from that point, from that night, and how does Labour take kind of advantage of the instability of the changing of leadership within the Liberal rank?
Well, it's not about taking advantage. It's now really pressing the argument to Mr. Turnbull to show how he is different. We would like to see that not just changing a leader, we want to see changing policies. For instance, in my electorate, which I represent, an electorate which has many Vietnamese people. Matter of fact, 20% of my electorate is made up of Vietnamese people. One of the things that's clearly very important to them is education. They don't like what occurred in terms of the Liberal government changing the commitment to Gonski funding and taking out the bulk of the funding in the last 2 years of that.
Yes.
As you know,
yes,
Vietnamese families are passionate about many things, human rights, a whole host of things, but most of all family. Vietnamese families want the best possible education they can get for their kids. They don't like to see that being cut. As it has been occurred. Other aspects of education, in addition to education rather, but health, these are the things that really impact on families generally, but the people that live in my electorate, they work for a living, they work very hard to support their families, and it's not fair to them, as the Tony Abbott's government did, or which Malcolm Turnbull was part of that, was for most families there was a $6,000 per annum cut in terms of families that are supporting children. Now that's just not fair for working families in my electorate in Western Sydney, and I'm sure for working families everywhere, that's just not fair. And this is the challenge for Malcolm Turnbull. Don't just change the salesman, change the product. You got to change what they're selling. You cannot sell that sort of policy and think people are going to be better simply because they've got a different salesman.
Yes, yes, I got your point. And so your job is continue to press hard for Mr. Turnbull, the new Prime Minister, to prove that he's not cutting the services, fundings to the voters in your electorate, in terms of education, in terms of hospitals and other areas. Yeah.
This has now got to be not an issue of Tony Abbott and Labor and Bill Shorten. This has now got to be a contest of ideas. We need to have policies on the table that people can decide whether they want to support these people or those people.
Yes.
And don't forget to an election where the government promised not to cut health, not to cut education, not to cut pensions, not to cut support to families.
Yeah.
And it did break all those promises. Yeah. Now, this is a time now, hopefully with Mr. Turnbull, he can change the way the Liberal Party have gone about that and simply say, well, this is what we stand for and this is what we're prepared not only campaign on, we promise we will do this. Yeah. Now, their promises weren't very good under Mr. Abbott. We would like to see a change in that. There's got to be integrity in politics.
Thưa quý vị, chúng tôi vừa nói chuyện về Đảng Lao động và cái cuộc đảo chính tối thứ hai vừa rồi tại Canberra, và dân biểu Chris Hayes có nói đến cái vai trò của ông trong thời gian sắp tới, đó là tiếp tục theo dõi ông tân Thủ tướng Turnbull làm gì và có thay đổi ra sao, và dân biểu Chris Hayes sẽ tiếp tục đấu tranh để chính phủ tự do không thực hiện những cái cắt giảm đối với giáo dục hay là đối với những cái chương trình an sinh phúc lợi mà rất nhiều cử tri người Việt tại địa hạt, tại khu vực bầu cử của ông, cuộc sống phụ thuộc vào đó. Yes, shall we move to the next question about overthrowing a government, sort of popularly elected government? Is it good or bad? How can we fathom about that?
Well, as you know, Labor
Yes.
has had some experience in that, regrettably.
Yeah.
When that occurred, whether it was Mr. Rudd or Ms. Gillard, I got thousands of emails of people saying how they believe in this country that we put a government in there, we put a Prime Minister in there. It should be the community's responsibility whether they elect them again or not politicians. Look, I understand that, but from all those thousands of emails I got when it was Mr. Rudd or Ms. Gillard, I wonder what people are now saying in terms of the Liberal Party members out there, whether they're getting those similar thousands of emails, because don't forget, they said that it was wrong. You should not be able to change a sitting Prime Minister. They always maintained that is the role of the people, and yet they did the very same thing. So at best, I guess you've got to put it down to being hypocritical or just bald-faced politics.
Now the BBC, the British news agency, has an article, and it run the headline of Canberra or Australia is the capital of the coup d'etat of democratic world. 4 governments in about 4 or 5 years. So it's a bit amazing. It's a bit, or do you think life is normal in Canberra, and that's the way how democracy works?
Look, I wouldn't say at the moment it is the pinnacle of being as an example of the best democracy, but look, obviously both parties have had some experience in this now, but only up until very recently, and even Mr. Abbott was saying that you just cannot change a sitting Prime Minister. That should be the role of the people. Now, clearly in the Constitution, that's not actually the legal position, but I understand where the comments are made, and I also understand the fact that there have been not only so many changes in government, but there's been so many changes in Prime Ministers over that 5-year period that people are asking questions, how stable is this approach?
Yes. Are you kind of interested in the new cabinet? Do you think you have any job to do in terms of that?
Well, my job as the Chief Opposition Whip will then ensure that Labor is going to be very much in a fighting position to take on the Turnbull government, to hold them to account, to make sure that we mark them against their promises that they've made. And if they can't satisfy the community that they've honoured their promises, we will do everything possible about changing this government at the next election. And that is a proper role in a democratic nation.
Yes, and that is a war call, the call to war.
Absolutely.
For the next one. We cover about your analysis about of Malcolm Turnbull, whether is he a new face, a old face, or a new person, but do you think is he a new Prime Minister?
Well, he was 5 years ago. He was the leader of the Liberal Party.
Yes.
Until he was rolled out of that position by Tony Abbott. He was beaten by 1 vote, and so he was the leader of the Liberal opposition in those days, and he got challenged, and as I say, he was knocked out of that position by Tony Abbott. Is he a new face? Well, people knew him at the time. People saw the campaign that he put in to destabilise Brendan Nelson, who was the former Liberal leader, of which Malcolm Turnbull was successful rolling him out of his job.
Yes.
So it's not exactly that they've had no experience in political infighting. They've all been up to their necks in that as well. So they come with that experience. But I think people will remember what he was like. Malcolm Turnbull, it was a fresh face in the Liberal leadership 5 years ago. It didn't take it long, something about 6 to 8 months, until he lost his gloss there and Tony Abbott decided to take him out.
Right. Yes. Thank you. Thưa quý vị, chúng tôi vừa mới trao đổi về liệu ông Malcolm Turnbull là khuôn mặt mới, khuôn mặt cũ hay là một người nào đó mà chúng ta đang tìm hiểu. Thì dân biểu Chris Hayes có nói đến cái ý là ông ta không có gì mới cả và ông ta thuộc nội các của Tony Abbott và ông ta có những cái suy nghĩ không có gì mới hết, và nhiệm vụ của ông Chris Hayes cũng như là các cái vị dân cử Đảng Lao động là tiếp tục đấu tranh để bảo vệ cái quyền lợi của người cử tri tại địa hạt của ông. Yes, we heard that during the week you also made a speech about human rights in Vietnam, and not just Vietnam, in Laos, Cambodia as well. Yes. And please share with us what you've been speaking about.
Well, I decided to lay down a series of markers as we're moving forward towards International Human Rights Day, which is in December. And also I was conscious of the fact that only a couple of weeks ago we had the Australian Vietnamese Human Rights Dialogue, of which I sent to the Department of Foreign Affairs and the Minister a series of things about Vietnam's human rights record, which I wanted the government to actually raise during that dialogue. The concerns I have is that we see a lot that's occurring currently in the Middle East, and we have enormous issues occurring there, and hence why we're going to take more Syrian refugees. But I wanted people to ensure that we don't take our focus off the human rights abuses that are occurring presently in Burma, in Cambodia, and certainly the human rights violations that are occurring in Vietnam itself. Vietnam is a country we trade a lot with. Vietnam wants to become part of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the free trade arrangements across the Pacific region. And one of the things I've been saying throughout my speech is that for us to admit a country into those free trade negotiations, it should be conditional that they first have demonstrated an improvement in their human rights record, and also that they have established labour laws that are enforceable, a free voice for workers, not government-controlled trade unions, where workers are not exploited. Now, these are things that we should be demanding of people that who want to be part of free trade agreements. So they're the things I wanted to put forward, and simply say that just because we are doing a lot in the Middle East at the moment, and we'll take 12,000 additional refugees from there, it doesn't mean the only atrocities occurring around the globe at the moment are the Middle East. We should not take our eye off what is occurring in our region, and particularly the areas that we have a very close association with, including Vietnam.
So you are raising awareness about human rights situation in Vietnam, and just an occasion to raise your concerns about one of the trading partners of Australia, and the issues are still there for the government to deal with, and for the Hanoi government as well to deal with.
That's right.
Yeah. Would you please share with us your a forward-looking planning for the next week?
Well, we're making preparations now for Moon Festival, getting that ready to go, because it's a very big celebration in Southwest Sydney. And
it's a cracker. So you'll be attending.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
People make a point of not missing that.
Right.
And in particular, my grandchildren just love being there.
Oh, so your family as well?
Oh, yeah, my family actually turned up, and my granddaughters turn up in HAYES.
Yes, HAYES. Okay.
So They enjoy the festival.
Special, yes.
Other than that, we are doing a lot of work at schools at the moment. So we're getting around here. Our senior schools, our senior classes are leaving for their high school certificate.
Yes.
So we're making sure we're going to wish them well, and dealing as much as we can with constituents. I've now been in Canberra for the last 2 weeks, so there's many issues from constituents, and so they'll have access to me all next week.
Yes, and probably you will have about 3 weeks with your constituents
Yes.
this time.
Yeah, 3 weeks before we return back to Canberra.
Turn back to Canberra.
Yes.
So how was the week? Have you recovered? Do you drink a lot of a bit of spirit to get over the night, or?
Well, I prefer getting up early, going for a swim or going for a jog. And on this occasion, I had a special reason to get up early to ride my motorcycle back to Sydney. So I enjoy the experience.
So you enjoy the physical activities, and things are now behind you, past, and then you looking at the future. Okay?
Well, people tend to look
in
at,
terms of the turmoil.
Yeah, look, people tend to look at politics. They see it on TV, and it's for those people out there. The truth is, people in politics are just normal people. Regrettably, we don't have many Vietnamese people there. That's something we've got to work on. But I like to not pretend. I like to do things with my family, my grandchildren, and things that I really enjoy, like riding my motorbike. So everyone who follows me on Facebook knows that I try not to be overly political. What I try to do is simply give a showcase who it is and what makes up Chris Hayes. So if any of you would like to see me on Facebook, please join in.
Very good. Thưa quý vị, chúng tôi vừa nói chuyện về một cái tuần mà bão tố vừa qua tại Canberra với việc lật đổ Thủ tướng Tony Abbott và cuộc sống cũng như là cái thời gian làm việc của dân biểu Chris Hayes. Thì ông nói rằng là ông đã vượt qua được những thứ đó và ông tập trung vào gia đình, vào những người xung quanh, vào các vị cử tri của đơn vị của ông, và ông cập nhật những cái hoạt động đó trên trang Facebook cá nhân của ông là Chris Hayes. Và mời quý vị nếu có dịp thì ghé qua để coi những cái hoạt động của ông và con người của ông là gì. Thưa quý vị, vừa rồi là cuộc phỏng vấn của chúng tôi với dân biểu Chris Hayes, đơn vị Fowler, và đến đây thì Mộc Văn cảm ơn quý vị đã theo dõi, và thank you very much Chris Hayes. That is our interview this week, and I hope you enjoy the ride, the motorbike ride, and enjoy the Moon Festival.
Absolutely.
This week with your families, and hope you have a good time with your constituents in Sydney, back in Sydney, and all the best for your health and your family.
Thank you very much.
Thưa quý vị, vừa rồi là cuộc phỏng vấn giữa Mộc Văn với dân biểu Chris Hayes, dân biểu lao động liên bang khu vực Fowler tại Sydney. Đến đây thì chúng tôi cũng xin chấm dứt và cảm ơn sự theo dõi của quý vị, và xin hẹn lại quý vị trong chương trình In Depth những tuần sau.